Glenn, let me ask you this really quick. I want to get into Smallville, but after Smallville was over, you had a name then in the industry, at least in doing these sort of shows, and people like, this guy knows what he's doing. Did you jump on Arrow? Was it right after?
I mean, not immediately after. I continued to. I went and did Charlie's Angels with Miles and Al, who asked me to sort of rejoin the fray, which did not last very long. But I moved the family, and Max and Julie came to Miami for 3-4 months of craziness, and then I came back, and then David Nutter. So basically, it all fans out from Mr. Nutter. He's been such a big part of my life in so many different ways. So he asked me. And he asked, we had never actually worked together, but we had prepped in season 1, the second episode. I think you guys remember, and David threw his back out and couldn't do it. Yeah. So I was prepping second unit with him when that all happened. That was the only real interaction I'd had with him, but we kept in touch over the years, especially at like the 100th or some of the other parties. And so he asked me to shoot the Arrow pilot for him, which I was super excited and grateful for.
Was his back out? Was his back out once again?
No, it wasn't. Although he has had recurring. I think he's finally licked it. I just spoke to him not too long ago, but he's definitely had some back leg issues over the years. But he asked me to shoot the Arrow pilot, and that sort of really did, even though it's, at first I have to admit there was a bit of hesitancy in me of are we going back into a similar fray that I'd been in with Smallville, especially because of, Justin had played the Arrow. But it was a completely different take on it with completely different producers. There was no Smallville people involved in Arrow whatsoever, other than the Warner Brothers part of it.
JD wasn't there?
Yeah, JD was there.
JD was there, yeah. But
I thought he was.
Above the line.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I brought my peeps, as many as I could. Yeah. And so he asked me to do it. And so that just went off in a new direction, and I met the new producers, and then I, as part of my agreement, I got one episode to direct, which is a common scenario if you're negotiating a season and you're a cinematographer, and there's room to give you the opportunity. But I had to prove myself to them. They didn't know, they'd seen my Smallville episodes, but that's all I had. And then I did the Arrow pilot with David, which was a great success and a lot of fun. I learned a lot from him, and he was very much a mentor to me. Watching him prep, I got a front row seat to watching, the pilot master at work, and watching he preps really hard. I would say most of his, honestly, this is not to say anything other than his prep is more important than shooting him. It's what goes on behind the scenes before the show gets to the camera is really what I learned from him. I mean, on set too is obviously super important, but being able to be there for it.
I didn't know anything when we did Smallville, but what I felt like I was in a situation with a master craftsman who I was safe. I didn't I feel like he knew what was happening, and it was just a beautiful thing to be a part of, being around him. And it still is. He's one of the most gracious, glorious people, talented I've ever met. And to those of you who, we talk about Glenn Winter right now, if you don't know, Glenn was on Smallville and then went on to be the reason and the visual sense in many ways in the heart of multiple shows beyond Smallville. So
the DC
that's
universe,
why I always talk about you. Because we go to these conventions and we're like, do you feel responsible for Arrow and Flash? And I'm like, no, but I think Glenn should. That's what I always say. I'm pretty sure Glenn should.
But Glenn, really
how many episodes did you direct of Arrow and Flash and you Superman and Lois? How many have you done?
Yeah. I haven't counted. So I basically did about a dozen Smallvilles. Then I did about six or eight Arrows. Most of my career has been, since Smallville, has been working with Warner Brothers and Greg Berlanti. And so that sort of changed into a little bit of a good pilot run for me, where Greg trusted me to do the Supergirl pilot. So I've done 6 pilots in total since then, which is a whole other way of directing, which is sort of what I was getting at with David is and everything you said, Tom, is exactly right. It's so much of what I've learned is it's about comfort. Yes, obviously, how to package it all, and you have to understand how you're going to make your days and spend the money properly. But so much of this is letting the cast and crew. But as far as the cast is it's very overwhelming. I don't have to tell you guys. It's to step into a production and be creating a new character. And I've just to be as nurturing as possible is the biggest part of a pilot. I would say it is in directing an episode too, but by then everyone's feeling more confident and less insecure.
Yeah.
And every actor, whether they're showing it or not, has some level of insecurity. If they don't, I think there's something wrong. And they need someone there that they feel is in their corner.